Hey everybody, this is Perch, and it's there's too much sky in Texas. That's part of it's unnerving, to be honest. I miss mountains and this nice cozy feeling. In Texas, there's so much sky. I feel like I could just float away. This is what happens when I do mushrooms before I drive in the car. Anyway, no, that's not true at all. That's not true. Here. I've got a good mail here from a viewer, and again, thank you for all the people who have delivered mail. As you've seen, I'm getting through a lot more of it now, and that's pretty awesome. So glad that's happening. Um, and so I'm slowly going to get to all these mails. Um, I think that a lot of the topics that get brought up are super interesting. I think that it tells us a lot. So this mail goes, "Hey Perch, I know you know an untold number of creators. It's actually 24, sir, not untold. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I know people. And for the purpose of this question, I know you can't name anyone who answers for obvious reasons, but here goes. Okay. For creators contracted by Marvel and DC, they know that they don't own their work. They may or may not get extra money if their story is adapted into a movie. Even if they get extra money, it's not much money. Or if a new character they create takes off, but by and large, the bulk of the money stays with DC and Marvel. That is true. If they published independent books, obviously there are challenges there, but they own what they create. Still, many choose to work for the big two. In doing so, they theoretically want to produce good work to keep getting more work, but some part of them has to realize that they don't want to give their best ideas to Marvel or DC for the same amount of money as their average work. So how do they balance it? Well, it's a good question. I have had this exact conversation with a lot of things, and I'm going to give you a shocking answer. Are you ready? A lot of the creators don't have ideas. It's true. There are obviously many creators who do have ideas and do have characters and do have original designs, but there's an equal number of creators who they like comics, they want a job, but they don't really have ideas. They want to write or draw Spider-Man, or have Christos Gage ghostwrite for them. They don't really have ideas beyond that. They are leaning very heavily on the crutch of existing IP. In this case, the Spider-Man, Batman, whoever it might be. And for many of these creators, those characters are the pinnacle of what it means to be in comics. These are creations that they grew up with, they're household names, and they want the chance to leave their mark on these characters. Now, interestingly enough, in a lot of cases, I know a lot of writers in particular that really kind of require a story seed, or like an editor come to them and say, "Hey, we'd like you to pitch a story about Batman takes a trip to France and there's a mafia there and he's got to take them out. Can you do that?" And the writer's like, "Thank you. You gave me the starting place, and now I'm on it. I'll go to it." That's what I don't want to say a lot. I mean, what is a lot? A decent number of creators fit into that category. The other aspect to all this, though, is that there's a number of creators who do have their own ideas, but don't really have the business sense or the partnerships or whatever it happens to be to take those ideas and do something with it. So if you're wanting to get one of your properties, to be powerful and popular, it's not just, hey, I can write and draw a character. It's also, I've got to figure out how to get it published. I've got to figure out how to get it marketed. I've got to get it, I've got to get copies made. I've got to get it distributed. I've got to, there's a lot of pieces there. One of the misnomers is that if you take your stuff to Image does all the hard work for you. But the reality is Image really doesn't. I mean, you have to go get your pitch sold and everything else, but, Image doesn't do much for you. Meaning, they're not going to hand to glove, do all those operational things, leaving you to just creatively make the book. You still have to hustle a lot for it. In many cases, you have to either do your marketing or do some politics to get your marketing. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it, and for a lot of creators, that's just not something they're particularly interested in. They don't want to get involved in those details, and who can blame them? It is a lot of work to do that, and in many cases, there's a lot of creators who've taken their stuff, say, to Image, and they've lost money or they've broken even. It's not getting your book published in Image. You would be surprised by the big name creators who really have not made a lot off of doing that. If you don't sell a lot of copies, if you don't get the trade mechanism really going, if you don't kind of push past this initial ratio, I mean, I heard some numbers thrown around once that, you really got to get past 15, 20,000 copies to really start to, clock on that business. And very few people actually accomplish that. It's not, you're not raking in millions and millions of dollars. Working for Marvel and DC is in many cases a safer bet because you know what you're going to get. There's not a risk of going into the hole. You're not going to get paid for all the upside of a character, but you also know that if you botch the marketing and the promotion and you have to pay a bunch of people and it just doesn't work out, that you won't lose your shirt. That's how that works. That's why a lot of people, it's just safe, warm, and comfortable working for the big two. You're not going to be a millionaire, but you know that if you get signed to 6 books, you're going to make X amount of dollars, and if you know it goes to a trade, you're going to make this amount of money, and maybe there is that upside. But what's interesting is more and more people that I talk to are starting to not nobody, very few people talk about striking it rich with a movie adaptation or getting a new character out there that's going to go big. If you go back in time 5-6 years, a lot more people talked about that stuff. If you go today, it's pretty. I don't know. It's more rare that people talk about it. They're like, well, I'm getting the money I'm getting, and I'm good. A lot more creators I've talked to, particularly on the art side, talk about getting into gaming. I know an artist that picked up a deal with a video game company that's going to pay him $150,000 for a bunch of concept work, and they're thrilled about that for about, I don't know, 2 months worth of work. So they're very, very happy. And you hear more of those kinds of stories. A lot of writers are still like, I hope my agent's going to get me a book deal soon. That's where I'm going with that. I hope my agent's shopping me around to get me some independent work, and it's going to get picked up. And so you hear a lot of that, but I also don't hear a lot of, and my agent delivered, and I got it done. There's very little of that. There's still some dreams, but more and more people seem to be waking up to the idea that maybe that dream's not going to happen. So that's why they do it. I think it takes a certain breed of creator and personality and thought type to say, I'm doing something for the big two, and I'm going to continue to incubate my own work, and I want to get out there someday, and I want to meet people. One of the big sins, I guess, that's happened in this industry, and this is where I half believe it's an intentional thing that was done by very sneaky, nefarious people. But there is this attitude, and I've heard this advice given out to creators before at cons of, don't talk about your business to people outside of comics. Keep it within comics. You don't want to, don't go out and meet new people. It's why there's a number of YouTubers out there who are actually pretty good business people. Maybe, some do have their MBAs. Some are pretty good at how you can shop and pitch something. And there's this attitude within comics of don't go talk to those people. Don't let them into, so you don't want to partner up with those people. You need to keep it with the family. And that's a phrase, I haven't heard that phrase as much, but back around 2010, I used to hear that phrase a lot in comics. You got to keep it within the family. And invariably, all the people who kept it within the family it didn't go anywhere. I mean, it's funny. I'm thinking about, look at Mark Millar and the success he had with his world and everything that happened at Netflix and all the rest. And he met and engaged with, a lot of people outside the family. He found people who were good at what they do, and he was very successful. He didn't. It's not like he left the comics family. He still obviously engages with tons of people in comics, but he went and made other connections, and it worked out for him. And if you look at the people who've done really well, they've broadened their horizons outside of that, quote unquote traditional family. And part of why I think it's kind of nefarious is it's allowed people to keep tabs on each other in a way that doesn't entirely feel healthy. I've known people who have started to get some traction only to have it, I don't know, there's no better way forward to put it. So only have their traction sabotaged by people within comics. I know some people who started to get some deals going, and suddenly a bunch of hangers on kind of joined the party, and the entire thing collapsed. If you're going to go get a good deal with getting your work put somewhere new or doing something innovative and disruptive, you need to have a close group of people around you that you trust. But don't start to bring in a dozen more of your friends. It gets too big before it can support the weight. And I think I don't know. There's just there's a lot of that goes on. So in general, there's a lot of creators that I do believe there are certainly a number of creators who have good ideas in their pockets and they've kept it to themselves and they aren't bringing it out to the big two. It's their dream idea to get rich on. But sadly, there's a decent amount of creators that die with those ideas. They take them to their grave. They're never able to actually spin that into something bigger. And if I have one hope for comics, I have many, but one of them would be I I would like, and I want people to have their ideas go places. I want those, the great American novel that's stuck in your head. I'd like to read it someday. I'd like to see that stuff out there. So I hope people reach out more. I hope people, work with people outside of comics, broaden that horizon, get some new blood in here. Let's make this bigger. You make it bigger by expansion. You don't make things bigger by keeping it within the family. And I think that if we can get more of those ideas out there, I think it'd be a healthier industry. I think that we'd see more things go on their own merits. I mean, the more sarcastic way to answer your question, I guess, is yeah, some people have great ideas that they think are great ideas in their head, but in reality, they're not very good ideas. I once had to sit through a pitch from a writer who was in turns with an editor, and we went out for drinks, and this writer joined us, and the writer's like, "Let me tell you my big idea," and the big idea was like, "Oh, there's this hero, and actually I shouldn't say the big idea because I think that guy's still out there shopping it. At any rate, yeah, the point is, it was not an original idea, not even close. It was a very dull concept you've heard before, probably a few times. And this was this is this guy's great American novel, the thing that this person was going to retire on. And it's like, yeah, that's Ghost Rider. That you just described Ghost Rider. I mean, Ghost Rider's cool, but maybe your great idea is not really a great idea, or at least certainly not an original one. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for listening.